Hey everybody, Jimmy Kerr with My Hometown Mortgage back for the second installment of our video series on the mortgage loan process. The first video was just a brief introduction of myself and my company, My Hometown Mortgage, and we talked a little bit about what you would need to do to find out if you could buy a house or not, which was simply put, just call us and we'll do the loan application for you and see if we can get you approved. So the second video here, what we're going to do today is we're going to talk about the loan application itself and what information we're looking for when we actually do the loan application. So this is a paper version of the loan application. It's called the Uniform Residential Loan Application. So this is a paper version. Now, when you call in or if you come and see us, we actually, I have a computer program that I type all that in. So you don't actually use the paper version, but we do print one for you to sign that does look very similar to this. So what I'm going to do is just kind of go over this information. And that way you kind of have an idea of what you're actually, what we're looking for. And so you can have some of this information at the ready when you do call or make an appointment to come and see us. So the very first thing that we look at, we're not even really worried about loan amount and things like that at the time. What we're really looking for is just some basic information about you and the co-borrower or whoever's actually going to be on the loan. So that goes just as simply, and I'm going to look down here because I'm going to kind of look at the application itself. The first thing is borrower information. Now, let me go back to this. There's actually three different ways to apply with us, and I'm sure it's the same with most people. You can A, call, as I mentioned in the last video, and we can do the application over the phone. B, you can set up an appointment to actually come in. If you're more of a face-to-face kind of person, I like to actually go in and see the person I'm talking to. Then we can actually do the loan application here in person. Or three, we have a website. It's myhometownmortgageky.com. You can actually go on there and fill out the application online. And it's emailed to me, and we punch all the information in and then give you a call. So those are your three ways to actually apply. So the first thing that we're looking for is the borrower information. Now, this is just simply your name, your address, your social security number, birthdays, how many years of school have you completed, how many children do you have, what are their ages. One of the main things on address, most people know the majority of that information off the top of their head. One of the main things that we're looking for is we have to do a 2-year history on everything. So your address, your employment, the whole deal. So you need to know what your physical address was for the past 2 years. Sometimes people will move around a little bit. Sometimes they're at the same place. It doesn't matter. It's just we have to have that history for 2 years. So you would need to have that information available. And that's probably one of the things that most people, if they have moved a couple of times, don't always know the physical address of where they've lived over the past couple of years. And that's fairly common. And then also a mailing address. Do you receive your mail at your property address, the physical address where you live, or do you have a P.O. box? Again, fairly common to have both or to just have one. So that's the main thing. So borrower information, it's just the basic stuff: name, address, social security number, birthday, and then address, phone number, email addresses, things like that. Just, basically how do we contact you? The basic information. Okay, so on page 2, we get into the employment history. And the employment history, we need to know who you're employed by. We need to know when you started. We need to know what your base rate of pay is. And then you want to have an idea of what you made last year, what was on your W-2 for last year on your tax return. We're also, and normally, like I said, with Google, back in the day, this was much harder with Google. If you don't know the address to the company where you work, most of the time I can find it online. But if you do have it available, it's probably a good thing to have. And I always tell people when, if you can bring your tax returns or your W-2s, it normally has that information, pay stubs, and we can get that information from there as well. So again, employer kind of goes back to the same thing I said on the address history. We have to have a 2-year history. So I have to know where you've worked for the past 2 years. Like for me, I work here at my hometown mortgage or own my hometown mortgage, and I've been here for 6 years. So that's what I would put. Now, if I'd only been here for a year, I would list my previous job, which was Citizens National Bank. And so I would list that job. I would need to know my start date, when I left, my rate of pay, things of that nature. So that's important to have. And again, it comes back to the rate of pay. What do you make an hour? Do you have overtime? Just the basics. We'll get the majority of the detailed information when we collect all the information that we do have to have. But that's the kind of stuff that we're looking for. Also, we'll need to know at your current address, do you pay rent? Do you live rent free? Do you live with family? That kind of thing. If you do rent, we do need to have your landlord information. Some products, not all, but some products require that we verify rent. And some products you can't get approved for unless you have paid rent for the past 12 months. So that's important if you rent. If you live with a family member or you live rent free, then again, we just need that address, and we would put 0 in for the rent. All right, so go on to page 3, which is our assets and liabilities section. Main thing we need to know is, where do you keep your bank accounts? Where do you have a checking account? Don't necessarily need to know the account number. We'll get that when we collect your bank statements. Do you have checking? Do you have savings? How many banks do you have accounts with? So if you have multiple bank accounts, a lot of people do with different banks, we would have to know each place where you have an account. And do you have checking, savings, IRAs, CDs? What do you have? And then a rough idea of what the balances are in those accounts. Again, they don't have to be exact, just a basic idea, somewhere in the ballpark, and because we'll update all that stuff when we actually do the documentation collection. Then some lenders are different and they don't really collect this information, but I always do because I think it makes a difference when we run you through what's called our automated underwriting system. The automated underwriting system is just what we call the black box. We punch your application in with as much information as we can. We run it through a system and it comes back and tells us whether or not you're approved. So I feel like this is important for that system, and I feel like I've had good success because I do this. But we'll need to know any assets that you have, like what kind of vehicles do you drive? I need the year, make, and model. Do you have a motorcycle, a four-wheeler, a jet ski, a camper, anything like that? And then we would need to know a ballpark idea of what those assets are worth. Now, the reason that I do that is because most people will have some debt. Say you have a car loan. I want to counteract that debt by showing the asset. And that way it affects your net worth. And I don't really want my borrowers to have a negative net worth. A lot do because of student loans and things of that nature. But if I want to make that net worth, the negative net worth, as low as I possibly can, and if at all possible, I want to have a positive net worth. I feel like it makes a difference. A lot of lenders don't require that information. I do, just because I feel like it makes a difference, and it makes a better loan application. It's more detailed. Now, your liabilities. Now, we will get the majority of your liabilities from the credit report, but we will go through each liability with you, make sure that those debts are accurate. But the main reason we do that is to find out if you have any additional debt that does not show on your credit report. So if you have additional debt, we have to report that. And it's like I always tell everybody, you don't want to hide anything like that from us because it always comes out. These underwriters that we go through, these companies that we do your loans through, they're very, very detailed. Their underwriters are very good, and it will be found out. So we try to get that information up front to make sure we don't have any issues moving forward. So that's really the assets and liability section. And then the last part of that is real estate. Do you own any real estate? Now, I always joke and tell people, probably not. That's why you're calling me, right? Because you want to own some. But if you own a piece of property, or your mom and dad left you a house and you rent that out, we need to know that. And we'll need to know the name, the address, and a basic value for that property as well. So then we move on to page 4, which is really just a question and answer portion of the application. It's basically questions like, have you ever filed bankruptcy? Have you ever had anything repossessed? Are you currently behind on any payments? Have you owned a home in the past 2 to 3 years? It's questions like that that we'll go through, and that's simply just a yes or no answer, and you just answer those as we ask them. So really, to be honest, that is the majority of the loan application. The biggest thing when we take an application, the things that people don't generally know is sometimes they won't know what their 2-year address history is. And that's fairly common. I mean, really, people won't know what the addresses are for the homes they've lived in for the past couple of years. And because they just know the most recent. And once you move out of one place, you just kind of forget the previous information. So that's important. And normally on the employment history, where have you worked over the last 2 years? Have a general idea of the start dates. Again, we get a lot of that stuff when we do our verifications, but it's nice to have a general idea. It actually helps with the pre-qualification. So really, that's about it for this one. It's fairly short. And the next video that we do, we're actually going to talk about the documentation and the things that we have to collect in order to process your loan. And we'll get into some detail with that. So for now, I'll let you guys be until the next one. My name is Jimmy Kerr. My hometown mortgage. We're at 3780 North Mayo Trail, Suite 201, Pikeville, Kentucky. Our office number is 606-432-6832. You're more than welcome anytime. If you're watching this video and it prompts a question, give us a call. We also have a Facebook page that you can go check out, go like it, and you can actually message us on there as well. We check it. So I'll leave you be for now. Go to YouTube, subscribe to our channel, and like the video. And if you got any comments, I do check those to see if there's any questions I can answer, and I can get a hold of you there. So guys, I appreciate your time, and I'll have the next video out in a few days, and we'll talk about the actual documentation that's required for the loan itself. Okay. Thanks a lot, guys. Have a good day. And if I don't talk to you before then, have a happy Thanksgiving. See you.